Okay, I know that this right here was the commentary that everybody was waiting on for me to do, and the reason why I didn't speak on the part that I'm about to talk on now is because I was waiting to see what the outcome would be with the actual sentencing of Jason Van Dyke, which actually just got sent down probably about an hour ago. Actually, it was less than that, but by the time y'all see this video, it'll be over an hour since the sentence has been passed. But I'm going to save that in the next part. But I wanted to talk about this first because this happened yesterday. So these three officers right here that you see in this picture, whose names are Joseph Walsh, David March, and Thomas Gaffney, went to trial back in November, where they were pretty much brought forward because they pretty much conspired to protect Jason Van Dyke when he shot and killed Laquan McDonald. If y'all remember, they were the ones that ran into the fast food restaurants and retrieved those security cameras, those surveillance cameras that were pointed into the direction of where the shooting actually happened, because it got at it at different angles. The only ones we really ever saw were the body camera footage or that dash cam footage, the one that we constantly kept seeing over and over when the event played itself out. And then, that's when they went in and talked about how the cops went into, I think it was a McDonald's, and took all those cameras and pretty much tainted it. They pretty much messed and tampered with evidence, which is a felonious crime. But yesterday, they decided to acquit all three of these officers for the crime they committed because that was a crime. They pretty much were covering up evidence. And that is when we kind of figured that the fix would already be in when it came to Jason Van Dyke. And I had told people I wasn't surprised that they acquitted all three of them because they weren't about to send four white cops to jail, especially in the city of Chicago. They weren't about to do that. That wasn't going to happen. It didn't even matter if they only went to jail for 1 year or just 6 months. They weren't about to send them to jail. And I think a lot of people also knew when they decided that they weren't going to send them to jail, that's when they knew that, okay, we know what to expect when it comes to Jason Van Dyke. So that part of the area didn't surprise me. I'm like, well, if they weren't going to sentence them to jail, then why did you even bother bringing up charges against them? And I think it's because the only reason they did it is because Jason Van Dyke was found guilty on the charges that he was brought up against, which was second-degree murder and aggravated assault with a firearm. The 16 shots. And that's going to be a major part that I'm going to talk about when it comes to Jason Van Dyke. But I'm not going to spend too much time on this part right here because it's a really short section. Like they got him in November, and now it's January. We're talking about almost 2 months later, and it is what it is. So it doesn't surprise me. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna transition over into the Jason Van Dyke portion, which is the part that everybody really has been focused on all day. I watched the Jason Van Dyke sentencing hearing from the time that it got started all the way up until the end. Now, I did doze off a little bit because it was pretty lengthy. It started at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, which is Chicago, so that's 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for me. And I watched it from, beginning to end. And one thing I didn't notice until one of my followers had let me know is that when he walked in, he didn't have any cuffs on. And they was like, that was a clear indicator right there, because usually when it comes to cases such as these, they will have the person who they are most likely planning to send to jail for a while in, in their cuffs. Eventually, they did put them on, and we saw when they was going to recess, which they did quite a bit. Like the constant going to recess, they must have run to recess at least 8 times this entire day. It was a lot of that. But basically, in this hearing, they interviewed different witnesses. They've interviewed people who had run-ins in the past with Jason Van Dyke, which was quite a few people, and they were pretty much all men, and they were all of color. There was three black men and one. I want to say this guy. He looked Asian or maybe a slightly Hispanic. I'm not sure, but he was also deaf. So with him, they had to have an interpreter. One who was a deaf interpreter and one who was an interpreter who could relay the the discussion between him and the judge through talk, through English speaking, so they knew what was being discussed. One part that was kind of, it was kind of sad was the older gentleman. I think he said he was 49, and when he was up there, I can tell he was. Now I wouldn't say he was a little bit off, but I think they said he had PTSD, and he was talking. I could tell that he was a little uncomfortable because he was constantly shaking and bopping back and forth in his chair. He even broke down, and I think he had to read something as well. I'm not entirely sure, but like I said, I kind of dozed off here and there because it was a very long proceeding. Like anyone who watched the live feed, because I put the link on my Twitter account, I should have put it up in my community post on my YouTube channel. But they had a live feed from the Chicago Tribune. I think they did also did a live feed on YouTube from the Washington Post and the USA Today and a couple of other avenues. So people had an opportunity to watch it if they did want to watch it. But it was a pretty lengthy proceeding. But that's pretty much how it all started. It was almost like watching a second trial. That's almost what it was looking like. So I wasn't sure, like, what was going on with that. I was like, I could have sworn they took care of that in the regular trial, but I should have known something was up, because I'm like, if this is a sentencing trial, why are they going through all of this? Usually a sentencing shouldn't take that long, maybe an hour, 2 hours max, not over 8 hours, or for what they were doing right here. Like I said, it started at 10 a.m. here, and it just ended at like 6:30 or 6:45. So it was a pretty lengthy situation right there. But that's pretty much how it started. Then they ended after they had them talk. Then they had people speak on his behalf. So the I can't remember everything, like what the first couple of people said, but I'm going to focus more so on Jason Van Dyke's daughter and his wife, because his wife was like the last person to speak as far as a testifying witness. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is his daughter. His daughter is currently 17 years old, ironically the same age that Laquan McDonald was when her father murdered him. Because he was 17 as well back in 2015. He would be turning 21 this year. So it was kind of like, it was very interesting how the ages played together. And she was basically reading a letter that she had wrote, and I'm guessing that was a letter she wrote for this particular proceeding, or maybe it was something she was going to wait and send him down the line, but I guess they felt today would be the day to actually do it. And basically in the letter, she was just saying how he's a good father, he's a good man, and all this and the third. The traditional code speak. They have to say something like that because they got to show their loved one in a good light, even though we see him differently, way differently, in a much darker tone than how they would view him. But that's pretty much all the daughter pretty much said, that she needed her dad, and because they have two kids, they have an older daughter and they have a younger daughter, so things of that nature. But the one that got me was more so of his wife, and I think this is what was the deciding factor as to how the sentence was handed down, slightly between hers, the daughter, and also whatever the judge had to say. And I got some choice words about that judge as well. So basically, when the wife got up there and they was talking to her, she was basically saying how she's going through financial hardships, which is basically why a lot of people were sending them money to help cover their expenses, because it's pretty obvious that Jason Van Dyke was the financial breadwinner of the family. It was saying how she had also had just got a job around the time all this happened, and she pretty much got blackballed because she said the name Van Dyke was like sending a poison around the city. Like nobody wanted to hear that name, nobody wanted to be associated with that. So it's like as soon as she got that job, that would have helped out, so it wouldn't fall solely all on her husband. She ended up getting it snatched away from her because of what her husband did. So a lot of people were directly or indirectly, I should say, affected by what he did, to the point where it trickled down onto the family. I think I even remember hearing stories months back where they were saying how sometimes their daughters wouldn't even go to school because the kids would tease them because of the stuff that their dad did. But you know what? I can't really feel too bad, because their dad was wrong. Her husband was dead wrong for what he did, and he knows that. But it also went on and talked about, I think, the when they was doing maybe the cross examination or something like that, they were asking him like, what is some things that kind of scare you or your fears as far as him, going to jail. And she says fear that, he might end up dead, or, she's not going to see him again, that he won't be around to see his daughters get married, go to prom, have children, be a grandfather to his daughter's children. I said, it's very interesting that she says all of that because Laquan McDonald won't be able to go to prom. Laquan McDonald won't get married. I don't know if Laquan McDonald had a driver's license or not, but let's hypothetically say that he didn't. His family won't be able to experience him getting his driver's license, nor will he experience it. He won't be able to have children, or experience or have his family experience having nieces and nephews and grandchildren, or or maybe other family members having other children and them being cousins and whatnot. That everything that she said that he would miss out on while he's alive, Laquan McDonald and his family are going to have to miss out for the rest of their life because he's no longer here to fill that void. So Jason Van Dyke is still alive. He's still breathing. Laquan McDonald, he's gone. There will never be another Laquan McDonald. And it's crazy that they sat up there and like she sat up there and she got on cold real quick. Like if y'all watched the court proceedings the way that I did, she did everything on code. She begged, she pleaded, she dropped the tears. I said when she dropped those tears, it's something that Tariq has talked about before. And he said it's something about he said you think that black girl magic is something when that white woman works her witchcraft, which usually falls behind her tears, that beats out the black girl magic any day. And that's probably what worked because that's exactly what she started to do. When she started to give them waterworks, that was it. Because she was talking about all of that and how they were going through financial troubles. Like I said, that's probably why the people were donating money to them and, helping them out and everything like that. So it's like, but at the end of the day, he can't get any type of gainful employment when he gets out. And I'm going to talk about the sentence, that pathetic sentence that was passed down too. But that's pretty much what the wife got up there and said. And when she was saying, the one thing that pissed me off in her testimony was like, he is not, she was saying, he is not a murderer. He was just doing his job. I'm like, doing his job is not shooting at a person who was of no threat to them and shooting them 16 times and then loading your gun to shoot them some more. That's not doing your job. That's overkill. And she knows that, but she had to get on code and say that. She knows what he did was wrong, but she's not going to make herself admit that what he did was inhumane and it was very savage in nature. Like, that was straight up torture. Now, let's reverse the roles here. If Laquan McDonald was in the shoes of Jason Van Dyke and Jason Van Dyke was in the shoes of Laquan McDonald and Laquan McDonald even shot one shot, that would be it. Let's not forget what happened down in New Orleans with those two black cops and that white dad and his white son, Jeremy Martis, in that car when they were driving and he was on a high-speed chase and they stopped him. And when he came around and gave him instructions, he didn't comply. He used his car as a weapon, which already is a felony right there. That cop had no other choice but to shoot into the car to stop him. He didn't shoot the driver, but he ended up accidentally shooting and killing the son, who was like 6 or 7 years old, who should not have been in that car at that time of night during a high-speed chase and in the front seat. He should have been in the back seat or at home. And what ended up happening? They sentenced that black cop, to 40 years in jail and wasted no time sentencing him. And they also, I think, I don't know what the sentence was of the other one, but they gave him some years as well. Which leads me into the sentencing part of Jason Van Dyke. But before I get to that, they actually allowed Jason to do a little testimony of his own. It was like a 2 or 3 minute testimony, and he read from a sheet of paper, and that was it. And when they came back, that's when they passed down that pathetic sentence of 6 years and 9 months. 6 years and 9 months. That's 81 months. And to be honest, I will not be surprised if he doesn't even have to serve all of that. Because guess what else happened? The judge gave him the opportunity to appeal that sentence within 30 days. And 9 times out of 10, he's going to do it, and he's probably going to do it in another county that's probably going to be a little bit more lenient with him. I'm not entirely sure if this judge was the same judge from the original trial where he was found guilty of. I remember when a couple days ago, when the juror had came out and said, please, was basically pleading to the judge, please do not give him a slap on the wrist. This is exactly what he did. And to that judge, he is very messed up because guess what happened? I don't know if y'all caught it. So the charges against Jason Van Dyke was second degree murder and aggravated assault with a firearm. That's where the 16 counts came in. So technically, he should have had a minimum of 16 years in jail just off of those counts alone. Do you know that that judge only charged him with the lesser charge of second degree murder and completely negated the aggravated assault with a firearm, even though those were one of the charges he was found guilty of in the original trial? I was like, okay, I'm not surprised, but I'm extremely disappointed because you completely negated one of the major charges that was brought upon him that he was found guilty of. They made it seem like he wasn't even found guilty of the aggravated assault with a firearm. It is black men in jail right now who are serving decades behind bars for marijuana possession, just a little bit of weed, something that doesn't even kill you. But this guy stood over a black boy and shot him 16 times after he was most likely dead after maybe the first or second shot, and then proceeded to load his gun until his partner stopped him from shooting to try to kill him some more after he was already dead. And then his wife going to sit up there and say that this is a good guy? No. He may be good to you and your family, but that by default he has to be. But that doesn't mean he's good to everyone else. The other witnesses that they had on the stand, those three black guys and that one other guy, they were talking about instances where he had run-ins with them, where he was being aggressive. The only thing he didn't do with them is what he did with Laquan McDonald, and that's not shoot and kill them. And they only gave him 6 years and 9 months, which, like I said, I doubt he's going to have to serve all. I doubt he's not going to be able to serve. He won't serve all of that time. I don't know where they're going to put him at. I don't know if they're going to put him in a gen pop. They probably aren't. And you can tell that the judge was very lenient because he said something about cops. He said jail is a very dangerous place. But then he came back and said, but it's very dangerous, especially for cops. I said, I bet it is because a lot of crooked cops have done crooked things to put people behind bars that don't even deserve to be there. And they said that this was a historic sentencing. When they said that, you got to really pay attention to that verbiage. They said this was a very historic sentencing, which means, okay, they said the last time a cop in Chicago ever got convicted of a crime was back in 1969. That's almost a century. Well, actually, when you think about it, it is a century ago. But from 2014, it was almost half a century. So they're counting it from that time when this incident happened. That's when they're counting it from. But now it is a century. I forgot who it involved, but they say fast forward now. This is the first time in 50 years, almost 50 years, where a where a white cop, or a cop in general, has been convicted of a crime, found guilty of a crime, but it's the first time that they've ever been found guilty or convicted of a crime against a black person. So you have to put into perspective how many black bodies have fallen by white cops over the years between 1969 and 2014 that were not convicted or found guilty of their crimes. I say plenty, dozens. And then they're going to try to say, oh, Chicago, black on black crime. They got all these shootings that happen in Chicago. You have all these corrupt cops that happen in Chicago. I remember reading an article where it stated that Chicago is one of the most corrupt cities in not only the establishment, but the world. They have some of the most corrupt police departments ever. But they never take that into consideration. And it's unfortunate because you have some black people that will believe and hang off of every word that they say when it comes to so-called black on black crime and all these shootings, I said, do you ever notice that all these shootings happen around a certain time, like a certain holiday weekend? Which, by the way, MLK weekend is this weekend. Don't be surprised if they start bringing stuff up saying something about black on black crime, especially on the cusp of this sentencing. But they say they have all these casualties, all these people that got shot, but they never have a person of interest. They never have any witnesses. Now, anything that comes out of Chicago where somebody has gotten hurt or injured or killed, and they have someone, then you can believe it. But when they say, "Oh, it was 50 people that got shot this weekend, and 30 people got killed and 20 were injured," but we have no witnesses, we have no person of interest, we have no suspects. I'm like, black people, do you need to be fitted for a dunce cap if you actually believe that every single time? I'm like, do you not understand that they are orchestrating this? This is all orchestrated. There's even been times where they got caught on camera dressing up like quote unquote gang members and putting in doing the stuff that they claim we're doing. They are known to do this, especially in black neighborhoods, especially in Chicago. And they always do that because, and Harvey made a good point, they only do this because of the former president that was sitting there. Like, y'all have to start connecting the dots and realizing that they're trying to play us. They're really trying to make us look like we're dumb. But I'm here to tell you right now, I was born at night, not last night. You can't pull the wool over my eyes. I know what's really going. I know what's really going on. But as far as with Laquan McDonald and his family, I definitely again offer my condolences to his family, his friends, and his associates. I don't know what the family is going to do right now, and it's crystal clear what the judge was on because he allowed him to have an appeal. I'm like, well, damn, are you going to give an appeal to the family? Because I know they're going to want to appeal this too. Like, they're going to definitely want to try. Maybe they probably want them to go for that civil suit, and it's probably what they're going to go for. But it's not surprising. It really isn't. It's frustrating as hell. It's disappointing, definitely, but it's not shocking nor is it surprising. That's why I can't really bring myself to be too mad about it. I already know what the deal is. They're probably saying, "Oh well, you can't get mad. At least we sentenced them. Y'all should be happy because they love when they give us crumbs and saying, well, here you go." They love to give crumbs and think that they're giving a whole meal. They love to give out that bronze trophy and think they gave us the gold and that we're supposed to just accept that. But this is exactly why Christopher Dorner, Michael Johnson, and Gavin Long did what they did. And people keep wondering why they did it. Here you go. This right here is proof of that. But that's pretty much all I have to say about this. I think I hit on all the points that I needed to hit on. Y'all let me know what you think down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. The links will be in the description, and I will talk to you in the next one.